Welcome back. In this section, we're literally going to talk about how you were created. That's pretty exciting, right? Here it is. We are a product of our history. We are mostly the sum of our experiences. Now, most people say, oh, I know that. That's kind of common knowledge. Well, you know it, but you don't know it. A lot of people attributed this to Freud, but it actually goes way back to the Greeks. And if you look on the other side of the pond over in Asia, they had this literally thousands of years ago. So this is old information, and you should know it. But what we're going to talk about is something entirely different of how you were actually programmed as you were raised. So let's jump right in. I'm going to teach you a rare psychological concept. This is really hard to find even in the psychological literature. I was lucky to run across it. It's something called the imprint period. The imprint period is a time that you were programmed. And this is where you got 80% of your personality. Somewhere between the ages 0 and 5 and 7, 80% of your personality is locked in. You're a young kid. Here's the challenge. At this age, your brain develops over time. If you've ever studied, even had like one psychology course, they probably taught you about Piaget. Piaget was a French psychologist, scientist, who was studying young children, especially his own children. He was fascinated by them. He tried to figure out what they could and could not do at different stages in their life. And he found that there was multiple stages. At one stage you couldn't do something, at the next stage you did. Think of it this way. They use like the object permanency test. I hold up a pen, little kid sees it, I put it behind my back, it disappeared, bang. I'm the best magician ever. I pull it out in front of me, it reappears. I put it behind my back, it disappears. They literally think it's gone. A year or so later, kid's a little older, brain development has come along. I show them the pen, they're like, great, I think I know this trick. You put it behind your back, and the kid's like, you're just hiding that behind your back, come on. We know things don't disappear. We know things are permanent. Object permanency. So you have a lot of stages like this. And I'll teach you an interesting psychological fact. Your brain isn't fully formed until you're 21 years old. And the last thing to come in is the higher end executive functioning, which is basically critical thinking and good solid planning and decision making. So good thing they raised the drinking age to 21. So 80% of your personality is formed between the age of 0 and somewhere between 5 and 7, depending upon who you like in the literature. And think of it this way. If 80% of your personality is locked in at this age, what's the chances that the other remaining 20% is significantly influenced by the initial 80% that it's what? Based on. So some people in the literature will say the imprint period really affects a minimum of 80%, and it's more like 90, 95, 98% of your personality is developed during this time. Some of it just has to wait a little bit longer to develop, but it's based on what? The original core personality. So the imprint period, this is when most of your values and beliefs are programmed into you. This is the systems by which you're going to think and you're going to perceive the world. Here's the challenge. When you're this young, you may ask a lot of questions, as you become verbal, obviously, but you do not question the answers. Steve Martin used to have a funny joke he'd tell from the stage. He says, hey, I got a great joke for you to play on a 5-year-old. He says, here's what you do. You hold up a pen and you say to the kid, banana, banana, banana. Then a couple years later, when the kid goes to school, he's going to be shaking his pen. He'll be like, damn thing doesn't work. And he'll shout out to the class. He'll be like, anybody have an extra banana I can use? A banana? Anybody? A banana? Now that's a funny joke, but not if you're that kid. You believe everything you are told because, again, you do not discriminate. That's a later psychological function that you physically do not have in your brain yet. You are plug and play. You take commands from the outside world. Everything you see, you literally believe. Everything you hear is gospel, as if it came from me to God to you. You are simply being programmed. This is a dangerous time, and I'm going to tell you why. It's a dangerous time because here's who is influencing your child, or looking back retroactively, who influenced you. So, who impacts us during the imprint period? First and foremost, major influence, our parents. Now, I think most parents are very kind and they're loving and they want the best for their kids, but they're also experimenting on their children as they go. Most parents, and I go over this in my parenting class, they do what's called nothing to it parenting, on-the-job training. They're going to learn as they go along. My joke in my family, because I'm the baby, I have 4 older sisters, is that we had 4 rough drafts before the final masterpiece. Now I laugh at that, but my sisters don't. But that's true. Okay? My parents experimented on child number 1, child number 2, child number 3, child number 4. Guess what? If you practice something, you get what? You get good at it. So they got better and better as they went. It's a little less fortunate if you're the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th child. Best if you're the 5th. Boom. By the time you get really good at parenting, what? You're out of business. Not a great way to do it. And again, most people do nothing to it parenting. What they do is they say to themselves, I am awesome, naturally. You probably instinctively knew that about me. I'm awesome. I'm an awesome human being. That's what everybody says to themselves. But I have these little flaws. And if my parents had done these 5 things, or I didn't have these traumas in my life, these things didn't happen to me. If I could just eliminate these couple of bad things and these, 5 things that my parents did wrong, I'd be super duper double awesome, if that's a real thing. So let's say it is. So what do? They raise their kids exactly the way they were raised, except they alter those 5 things. And they don't realize that their parents said the same thing, and their parents before them, and their parents before them. I used to do a survey in my parenting classes. I would say, or when I was doing therapy with people, I'd say, okay, let's go over your list of parenting skills just so I'm kind of up to date with what you have and what you don't have, so I won't, share any information that you might already have, because that would be a waste of our time. Remember, I'm very expensive. So I would say, okay, how many people in here have a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate in parenting or family therapy? Anybody? No? No hands? Okay. So, anybody taking maybe a 7-day workshop or something like that? You had 1 class in it. A class? Anybody with a class? Almost no hands go up. All right. Check in again. Anybody read a book on parenting? Virtually no hands go up. This might be in a room of 300 people at a seminar. So far, 3 hands have gone up. Then I say, well, maybe listen to a cassette tape when you're driving around your car. Anybody? Bueller? Little or no hands going up. Well, maybe you're sitting around the podiatrist's office, you picked up a pamphlet, you flipped through a magazine, something. Almost no hands going up. Think of it this way. For me to go into your home and to give you a little bit of advice about your child, I got to get a bachelor's, which is 4 years. I got to get a master's, which is another 4 years. No, now I'm 8 years in. I got to do a 2-year internship. And now I'm brandy new. I probably stink at it, but I got 10 years into this, and I can give you 1 piece of advice about your child. That's how complex it is. But parents go out and say, oh, there's nothing to it. I'm just going to, do it like my parents did, and I remember exactly how they did it. And I'm not going to make these 5 mistakes that they made, and my kids are going to be super double awesome. It's simple, because it's me, and I'm a damn genius. That's not how it works. That is not how it works. That's like trying to say, well, I'm a heart surgeon, and I can go ahead and I can do surgery on anybody, including myself, because, I've seen every episode of Grey's Anatomy. Doesn't work like that. So these are the first people that are imprinting either you, looking back retroactively, or your child. Let's see who the next influence is. Teachers. Now, I think teachers try to do a good job, but they got 20 to 30 kids coming at them at a whack. And some teachers will say, no, it's not 30, Paul, it's 35 or 40. Depends on how large the classroom is, right? But they can care about a child as much as they want, but they will never care about that child like you do. And if you had 30 kids, I guarantee your attention, your focus, your caring would be 1/30 of what it would be if you had one child. It simply has to be divided. Now, these teachers may not believe the way that you believe. They may not think the way you think. They may not be instilling the values that you want your child to have. Or they may be instilling values you want your child not to have. Major, major influence. Next major influence, the media. Most kids, their babysitter is the TV. And the media's only job is it has one sole purpose, and that's to sell you things, including the government. Their job is to sell you a bunch of BS, their belief system, so that you take it on and become a good little drone and go out there and obey. That's what you're supposed to do. So you are getting programmed in the media all the time. Corporations and the government control all the media. It's always one or the other. This is not a good source of morals and values, or even critical thinking. It actually tries to discourage critical thinking. Here's your other major source of influence. You have two major sources, parents and then friends. Here's the challenge. Unfortunately, these kids are between the age of 0 and somewhere between 5 and 7. They are also young and clueless. And for a good portion of the time, they're still pooping their pants. These are not the people I would go to get good life advice. This is the blind leading the blind. This is going to go horribly, horribly wrong. And it's not their fault. Now, Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at the level of thinking that created it. What I take that to mean, it's just one way to take it. There's multiple ways to take it. But one way that I take it, and you can take it from me, is that if I'm 5 years old and I've got a 5-year-old's bulk of experience, store of experience, and you're a 5-year-old and you got a 5-year-old store of experience, you'll have a little bit different experiences than me, so you might be able to teach me a few things. But basically, I'm at a 5-year-old level, you're at a 5-year-old level. To go higher, I really need somebody that's 6, 7, 8, 9, could be 90. But I need them to be above a 5-year-old level. Unfortunately, we tend to hang out with kids that plus or minus a year or two are our age. That's how we lose. And we don't get any smarter as we get older. Look at your high school kids. They're all trying to figure out dating. And who are they asking? Not mom and dad who had 10 years of dating experience, or 20 in this day and age, right? And are, 20, 30 years older than them. They're asking their other clueless friend that's been dating for about 6 months or 6 days or 6 minutes, or hasn't even dated yet, just lies about it, or says, hey, I'll give you some advice even though I have 0 experience. So we tend to do this throughout our lives. Rarely do we seek out experts, and rarely do we seek out our elders. Now, in this imprint period, remember, you're being programmed. You're like a computer. You have a hard drive. So I'm going to teach you a computer term. It's called GIGO. It's pronounced GIGO. G-I-G-O. Garbage in, garbage out. Data in is the data that comes out. So, whatever is put in, that's what's going to come back out. I tell people, don't read crap, don't watch crap, don't listen to crap. You know why? Because that's what's going in. And eventually, if enough crap goes in, you're going to be what? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be full of crap. If you haven't got time for the good stuff, the good information, at least skip the crap. So, mental programming. This is a great old psychology phrase, born to succeed, but programmed to fail. So I want to tell you something, and this isn't to let you off the hook. Well, it is a little bit, but also to empower you. You were programmed one way, so you can be reprogrammed another. We're going to talk about that later. But I want you to know that a lot of the things that you did in life, most of the things that you've done, at least up until now, right, because we're going to teach you a little bit better, was based on programming. You were running a program. You, in a lot of ways, were not free to be any other way. You were the accumulation of your programming, of your experiences, and you just ran that program. Matter of fact, there was a guy named Skinner, we talked about him earlier in the first section, and said, you know, if I can control the pain and pleasure, I can control the outcomes. Well, if I can control the programming, how you think, your beliefs, your philosophies, I can also control you. And life has done that to you at a point where you were helpless to defend against it, where the bulk of your personality was already locked in. If you were raised to be a thief and then you steal something, I wouldn't say you were a thief. I'd say you were a good product of your training. Like everybody. Everybody is a perfect product of their training. And just like Einstein said, you can't exceed your current level of thinking. You cannot break free of or exceed your programming until you've been trained how to deprogram yourself and how to reprogram yourself. I'm going to show you how to do that later in this program. So you'll want to go all the way through this training. Don't miss that. You will miss the only thing in life that will set you free. I'm going to repeat it. If you miss that, and it's like the last section of the training, or very close to it if I remember correctly, you will be stuck and you will not be able to change.